San Diego! This is Laura Jane, and welcome to What's Happening in San Diego, our podcast from Hapnyn.com. This is part 2 of Robin Henkel, one of my favorite entertainers in San Diego. Be sure to check out last week for part 1. Let's get caught up. We are talking about a song that Robin Henkel wrote 40 years ago and just reimagined and remixed it and recorded all of the sounds himself. It's called Little Cars, and it's not been released yet. It's a big secret. You're hearing it first here on What's Happening in San Diego. This is called Little Cars.
Everywhere I go, little cars may suit you fine, but I must have power. I must have energy. Little cars in the morning, little cars at night. Little bugs on my window screen, all squished up and out of sight. Amongst a sea of lightweight people, I'm just trying to get heavy. Amongst a sea of those little cars, I need to get heavy. I want energy. I want power. I need energy. I want power. I need energy. I want power. I need energy. I want power.
I just love the funkiness of it. I told Robin just a minute ago when we heard it the first time together that it reminds me of war. You know, that funky Latin, like you're on the streets having fun, you know, kind of a feeling.
Actually, that's exactly the sound I was going for. You know,
it's
almost
so
40
funky.
years ago when I did the song the first time. And I think I captured that feeling better in this version. First time it was recorded, it was in a recording studio with real live musicians. That version that you just heard was just done in a home studio on Pro Tools with electric instruments, combination of playing and...
Okay, I have a question about your home studio.
Okay.
Now, is it a designated room, or is it like the corner of the living room, or do you have it in a, you know, an outer building? Where's your home studio?
It's in my living room. I
Okay.
live in a condominium in Scripps Ranch, so there's road noise, and there are neighbors, and I pull it off really, really well. You know, over the years, I've had one studio built around a Macintosh G4, and then that evolved to when I bought Pro Tools in 2008. I got an iMac, so I got a large screen, a couple of nice speakers, and some microphones, and all of that set up. And I decided, well, the bench is too far away from the drum set, so now I have, get this, a typewriter desk from the 60s with the old arms that flap up, right? And I've got the speakers on the arms. I've got my Macintosh.
Is it on like those little metal wheels?
Yeah. Well, they might be rubberized, but yeah, but it's like those little wheels you can. So the point is, it's mobile.
Right.
You know, and if I can sit right next to the drummer, because I want to be next to the drummer, but those were drum things that I don't even remember how they were made. They were probably made with synthetic drums, or actually I had Nucci, you know Nucci,
Brian.
Cantrell.
Yeah.
We were recording and just goofing around in a studio in El Cajon. Had a big red door on the front of it, near the trolley station. Some people probably know that studio. I don't know. Never had a name. It was just where a couple of bands shared the space. And I took pride in being able to put the entire studio in a suitcase and set it up on a chair and have, the module, the Pro Tools module, bring the mics in, wire it all up. And it reminded me of, those scenes where there's an assassin in a spy movie and he rents a hotel room and he has a suitcase and he assembles his gun from the suitcase.
Right.
Well, I'm assembling a recording studio out of a suitcase. And it's kind of cool to have just a laptop and, whatever interface you need to use, headphones and some microphones, and be able to set it up in 20 minutes and record 4 or 8 track. And one day, Nucci just sat and hit the kick drum. Boom, boom, boom. And then the snare drum, rim shot. Or just regular snare, and hit every drum. And it's just like a guy, making samples to put on his keyboard, but I just recorded them in real time. I'm not that sophisticated. I just recorded them, and I have them on a file. So whenever I need a kick drum, I just go grab whichever one I like.
So Nucci is on every record.
Well, you
gotta love that.
A lot of them. Yeah. So
wow.
So anyway, the drum track for that song started out being one of those things. It might have even been that Cascara beat played on the cowbell. Then I'll add boom, 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 and so the song grew out of that.
So what time is that song in?
It's 4/4.
Oh, really?
1, 2, and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
It sounds so much fancier than that.
And 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
That's so cool.
And 2 and 3.
Well, that's Little Cars Explained.
Yeah, it's Little Car.
All right. Obviously, you've collaborated with a lot of people through the years, and you had a lot of fun with the Buddy Woody show.
Yeah.
Now, this guitar that you have on you right now, it's a new guitar. We've switched out. What is this one? And did you ever play this at the Buddy Woody show?
I believe so. This is a new 1937 National. It's a metal-bodied. If you pick it up, it's about 12 pounds. It's pretty heavy. It's got that old-fashioned 1930s V-neck. The only thing that's been modified is that it has a guitar pickup on it. And the guitar did not have a pickup on it when it was made. One of my students bought this guitar on eBay, took it to the Blue Guitar. They probably reset the neck and did some work on it, got it working pretty good. And then he decided he was afraid his kid was going to ruin it, so he sold it to me. For probably a pretty good price. I don't remember, but these guitars normally are $2,000 and up. I probably got it for $1,500 or $1,800. So I feel it's a wonderful guitar. I have it tuned to an open chord, so I can play.
Oh yeah. Yes.
To so I can get kind of the Elmore James thing. Or kind of Fred McDowell. I got to turn the treble down.
Okay.
Hang on a sec. That's better. I'm not really a purist, even though I love these old guitars. I'm not a super purist, because a purist would say, do not play that guitar through an amp. But it adds a nice dimension that I like.
That sounds
of course,
better.
The thing is, Elmore James would have to be through an amp, but Robert Johnson and a lot of that old Sun House and stuff was not through an amp. So I like the kind of sitting in both worlds. It's kind of nice. The song I was thinking of doing came out of a conversation with Billy Watson and I about
Billy.
15 years ago at a place in Leucadia. It was called Robbie's Roadhouse. And I won't tell the whole story, but the punchline of the story is she's slippery like a watermelon seed. Sometimes I'm walking down the road. I get all messed up, I forget where I'm going. This ain't nothing like anything that I'd ever known. When I see her, my trash starts overflowing. Ow, she's slippery. Like a watermelon seed. Oh, she's shown up slippery. She got everything I need. Creeping into my dream when I'm sleeping in the night. This little girl has got me wrapped up real tight. I don't know her name or who she is. Ow, she got me all messed up like nobody's business. She's slippery like a watermelon seed. She's shown up as slippery. She got everything I need. With this little miss, that's when my love began to hiss. I don't know her name or who she is. She got me all messed up like nobody's beeswax. She's slippery like a watermelon seed. She's shown enough as slippery. She got everything I need. Like a watermelon seed.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, you just made me slippery.
Oh, oops.
Now,
take a little break.
Isn't that like, isn't that the title track for one of your
Actually,
records?
that's the title track. That song was recorded by Jeff Berkeley.
Okay.
Back in October. And it was finally released in December. It was probably the quickest record I've ever made because I've been doing all of these songs on my solo gigs, so there's no rehearsal or going into the studio and doing the song 10 times over to try to pick out the best one. Like when you do it once or twice, that's as good as it's going to get. So it was easy to just move through quickly. And I think the reason I know the reason why I selected his studio, the one that was down on Balboa, was that he would hire me to come in and play a track on somebody else's song. And a lot of times I would never even meet the artist. I would just come in and play a little. He'd say, come down and bring your dobro, and I do that. And every time he recorded me, I noticed, whoa, he really got a terrific sound. That guitar's never sounded better. And especially the last time I did a session. So I said, next time I record something, I'm going to go over to Jeff's studio, which I did in October. And I think in about...
Of 2017?
Yes.
Okay.
So after three-hour sessions, that pretty much wrapped it up. And
Now,
I had drums on one or two songs, added a bass to one or two songs, and the rest of it was just solo acoustic. And it came out in December, and by February, whenever the Music Awards was, it was awarded Best Blues for the San Diego Music Awards.
That's what I was just going to say. I think I saw you getting an award for this record.
Yeah, very happy about that. Very, what can I say?
Yeah, I know.
You know? Wow.
That's a mind-blowing marvel
Yeah.
and a wonderful feeling. And what a great night that was, too. Just so many beloved San Diego musicians and producers and engineers and photographers and booking agents and families all there. It's such a wonderful family we're in.
Yeah, it's a great
in
feeling.
San Diego.
Really a great feeling.
It is. And to know that the blues is very appreciated in this town as well. So I know you've played with a lot of people. Do you have any goals that are unachieved yet about who you would like to collaborate with, or some studio, if money was no object, if you could just say, yes, I want to do a record and I want this person, or I want that person, or I want to go on tour with this act, or...
Not really. I don't think about that. I think what I think about is, I sit and I write personal, psychological, or emotional stuff, like journaling, for self-help. I've done that almost every day for 20 years. And what I've been writing about most recently is, I'm 66. How long am I going to live? 20 more years, 30 more years? And what do I want to have happen in that time? And I don't think about collaborating or playing a certain show or anything like that. I think kind of about, as you'll hear from some of the different music that I do, I've got my feet kind of entrenched in the techno rock or techno pop of the 80s, and people don't hear that when I do my shows because that doesn't come out. It's in the closet. But taking that and the funk, I used to be a bass player and I could like slap the bass, and I've always wanted to mix that up with this primitive blues style, which is what I'm more known for doing. And every time I try to mix all those elements, they don't mix that well. But I'm continuing to do it and keep take some of those dirty drum and mix that with some of this guitar playing and some wicked slap bass. And I know I'm going to evolve something new that hasn't been heard yet, or there's a chance of that happening. And that's kind of the road I'm going down. Maybe just more out of personal pride, because I'm not so much in it commercially. It's definitely an artistic thing. And I'm having a blast playing percussion instruments, like handheld, Latin percussion, recording that and then adding kind of a funk style drum to that, and then adding some Latin or funk style bass, putting this guitar. You can work hours and hours and hours in the studio, and it's so much fun that it's easy to get distracted just working on a groove. I'll work on a groove for hours and never really come up with a song. And I realize that, really one of the bottom lines is come up with something that's worth recording in the first place. Come up with a good song. And that's really...
Well, the process is so fun, like you said.
Yeah.
Like the process of recording and exploring. And I'm glad that you think of yourself as like an explorer. Out there trying to discover new lands, because that means that, the curiosity of music hasn't left, the station. You're like, wait, there's so much more to be discovered, less than with a certain type of person or collaboration or that kind of thing. It's more like this dream you have of blending these styles that you love and making that come out great. It seems like it would lend itself to live performance, though, as well as recording, especially if you were like one of those zippy little performers going from slapping the bass, slapping the bass, to like going over to guitar and then step behind some sort of percussion thing, and that would be fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that. That's so great. And I love that you journal.
Yeah, I've been doing that. I did it long before I came across, a lot of people have come across the book, The Artist Way. That kind of turned me around. It's a book that, on the surface of it, it's written for artists to help them focus on their art, but it could apply to anybody's life. And it's really almost like helping a person gain focus in, what do you want? What do I want? And we dig ourselves in these ruts of alcohol or relationships or all the things that happen in a person's life that kind of get old, and we realize, this is holding me back, smoking and, doing all this stuff. And, a lot of times, you got to quit smoking, or you got to quit, you got to stop something you're doing which is not working for you and is holding you back. And it might even put you in the grave. But you don't really have the willpower to let go of it. And 10 days after I started reading that book, never even finished it, I quit smoking pot, quit drinking alcohol. And after I succeeded at that for a couple of months, I said, oh my God, now the worst. If I prove to myself I can do that, now I have to quit smoking cigarettes, which I did. And that was terrible. That was really harsh to quit smoking. But I did it. That was in 1997.
I quit
so
in
it's been
92
20 years now.
Smoking cigarettes.
Good
it
for
was
you.
really hard.
It was worse.
I just started singing so much. I'm like, this is stupid. Why am I ruining my voice when I'm getting so much more pleasure and income from singing?
And, you can feel yourself getting better at something. And that's really, it's something that happens slowly. But when you really feel it's happening, it's
the
real.
control. Your style of singing, it sounds loose, but it also sounds so controlled to me as a singer. Because you've got these little things that are, I don't know, Henkel-esque. You know what I mean? They're like your own little spin on things. You do this growly kind of a talk, and then you when you go up on the note a little bit or whatever, I'm like, I'm so excited as a singer to hear all that. And you do get more control if you quit that smoking.
Yeah, you sure do.
And who knows, I may gain more control if I quit drinking. But that is a story that has yet to be told.
Yet to be told.
So
I'm not sitting here telling anybody they're supposed to do anything.
I didn't
feel that.
Those
are the choices I made for myself.
No, I love that. And I love that your goals, I asked you about your goals and you're like, well, yeah, you're hot on the trail of it. You kind of have a focus.
And you asked me about the journaling thing. That's the reason that's why I brought up the artist way, is because in that book or in that process, it's a daily journaling thing that you do.
Well, I love that. I've never daily journaled, but I do make a lot of lists.
Lists are terrific, aren't they?
Yes.
I love lists.
And I write poems all the time. I can't help it. And silly little ditties. I love writing music. I want to do more of that. That's in my goals for sure. More original music. Do you want to do another original song for us?
Sure.
Okay.
Maybe we should take a break while I switch to the other guitar.
That sounds perfect.
Is that a good thing?
Yes. Let's do it. This podcast is brought to you by Hapnyn. Looking for something to do? Whether it's live music, dancing, theater, comedy, karaoke, trivia night, burlesque, interpretive dancing, you name it, you can find it on hapnyn.com. Visit hapnyn.com to find out what's happening near you. What's happening, San Diego? This is Laura Jane back with Robin Henkel. This is part 2 of our 2-part series. And he's got a metal guitar. Tell me about this guitar.
Well, this guitar is a 1929 National Tricone. Ooh. And you've seen those guitars that look like they have a hubcap on the front of them?
Yes.
Well, those are generally called dobros. Or the more guitar player official name would be resophonic or resonator guitar. That's what they were called when they came out with them in the 1920s.
In the 20s, they had a term resophonic?
Yes.
How bitchin'.
Yeah.
All right.
In fact, looking at some of their old advertisements and stuff is really wonderful. Anyway, on a resophonic guitar or a resonator pan guitar, underneath that thing, it looks like a hubcap. There's a metal speaker. It looks like just like a speaker cone.
Right.
And the string energy is transferred to that speaker and it vibrates it so it amplifies itself acoustically.
Without the need for an amplifier.
That's correct. And at that time, there may have been people experimenting with making a guitar pickup, but nobody really made one work very well. I don't think those really came along until like the 30s, mid-30s or so, and they were put on some of the first guitars. But back in 27, when they were trying to figure out how to make a guitar louder, I heard that they would take like a phonograph needle and embed it in the wood of a guitar, take a microphone, put it inside a guitar. It must have sounded god-awful ugly. And John Dopiera and this capitalist entrepreneur named Beecham, they had this company called National, said they conspired together and they said, well, let's build a resonator guitar, a guitar that has a metal speaker in it, and we'll market these things. And I think John Dopiera, who was a Czech, and several of his brothers made guitars also, was working in concert with this fellow to build these guitars. He's probably in charge of manufacturing and market or quality control and all that stuff. And they made these guitars, and this is the first one they actually made. You can't see it, but instead of one big pan, it's got 3 pans in it that are small, about 4 or 5 inches in diameter. And that's why they call this guitar a tricone, because it has 3. And it's got a very distinct sound that's different from the Dobros.
So this has not been reconfigured for an amplifier at all. You're playing completely acoustically right now.
In fact, just in the same kind of thinking that you don't polish certain kinds of antiques, you don't modify them, it would be kind of sacrilege to a collector to modify this in any way, including putting a pickup on it. My other guitars have pickups on them, but this is kind of older and more special. So
this is a like a silver toned guitar, and it has all this beautiful etching in it.
Yeah, this particular model is called a chrysanthemum. Actually, this was their top of the line. In fact, John Dopiera said that this one was his least favorite because it had the most etching on it, and that took away from the sound. It's getting pretty precise.
Wow.
But anyway,
that's not very deep etching, though.
No, it isn't. But actually, you can see it, but your listeners can't. I don't know if you can see the serial number is just stamped in with a metal punch after all of that, articulate work. It's kind of incredible. But this is guitars in 1929. It was found in a garage sale in Ramona. Oh. And the person that found it was a collector. So even before the case opened up, he could tell from the shape of the case that it was some kind of a national guitar in there. So John Dopiera had a falling out with this entrepreneur fellow named Beecham that ran the company National, because the guy would throw lavish parties for his shareholders and do all this stuff that John was probably this old, traditional, conservative, craftsman, and he just didn't jive with this guy. So he quit, and he started his own company called Dobro. And it's believed that Dobro is Dopiera Brothers squished into a short word. Dobro. And they became well known for single cone resonator guitars that were made out of wood, although they made metal also. And National became well known for metal guitars with the single resonator. And of course, National sued him, and he countersued, and it was during a depression. It was terrible. Both companies eventually went out of business, and both companies were eventually started up again. But this is kind of an icon of American guitar history right before electric guitars came in and pretty much took over. So.
Is the neck of that guitar extra thick? It seems like
this
it would be hard to play.
Is what was called Hawaiian or square neck. Like, it's so big you can't get your hand around it, as you can see. So it's intended to be played with a slide bar on your lap. So that's just the way you play it. See, another sidebar to this conversation is that Hawaiian music was popularized on the mainland of the United States. There was a World's Fair that featured Hawaiian music, and it got very, very popular. And from like the late 20s all the way to the 60s, Hawaiian music was kind of a big deal. I mean, my first instrument was a little plastic Arthur Godfrey ukulele that my mom bought for me when I was like 8 years old.
I saw Arthur Godfrey live.
Oh, you did?
When I was a little girl. I think I was like, 6 or 7 years old.
Really? Where was this?
In Michigan.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he emceed and played at a Royal Lipizzan Stallions performance.
What is that?
It was this horse dancing, specialized
Hey, I think
troupe
we need
of
to
horses.
interview Laura Jane is what we need to do here.
But when you said Arthur
I'll ask the
Godfrey,
questions.
I'm like, I met him.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I have an autographed picture
Do
somewhere.
you really?
I do. So you started out on the ukulele with
so I
the
started
Hawaiian sound, and then
Yeah.
this. Now you said you wrote an original song with this instrument. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
I've written several actually.
Excellent.
When this guitar came into my life, the collector who had found it called me and said he wanted to sell it to me because he'd seen me play before, and he says, I want this guitar to go to you. I could sell it to a guy that will put it behind a piece of glass in his house, and they can sit and ogle at it.
Look
But he
at
says,
it.
I want it to be played and shown to people as an icon of American history.
Well, he's
and
a
guitar.
champion of music, isn't
So
he?
I'm trying to fulfill that. You know, I show it to people, I put it in people's hands, I walk over to people's tables and I play it for them while I'm at certain restaurants and stuff. And of all the pieces that I own, I probably am most cautious about this one getting damaged or stolen by. I don't even take it to some gigs. I only take it when there's a listening crowd. And since you'll have to get it with a microphone, miking a guitar at a live gig sometimes is not such a great idea, depending on the venue. So I don't even bring it to certain venues. I bring it to the House of Blues because I've got a sound man and a controlled environment. I bring it to Nate's Garden Grill where I'm playing tomorrow because I do my own sound and I can get it just the way I want. It's a quiet place, so it works out really well.
Well, it's a beautiful instrument.
You want me to play one?
Yes,
This
please.
is called, I'll do a couple. I'll do a medium tempo and kind of a faster one. This one's called Mortero Road. Oops, I forgot to take this thing off.
Oh, it's so cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. That's great. That is just like a heartbreaker when you go the down. Oh, it just gets you right in the ticker. Oh,
That's good.
I love it. Mortero Road?
Mortero Road.
Mortero Road.
That's a road that's in the Anza-Borrego Desert, just north of Ocotillo, a few miles. It's the road that goes out to an abandoned train station called Dos Cabezas, which is kind of a favorite. You know, like when I drive out to the desert, I'm kind of a looky-loo. I'll go to places I've gone before and just to check them out. And when I say an abandoned train station, I mean the only thing is there is a water tower and a few foundations and kind of like what used to be like a loading ramp for loading trains. And there's actually a trestle out there that goes over a canyon that you can walk to. You're not supposed to, because even though Anza-Borrego is public park property, the train tracks belong to the railroad, but people hike out 5 miles out to the trestle all the time. And you go through a couple of tunnels to get to it too, which is kind of cool.
That's beautiful. I love the way that instrument sounds. It's just...
Yeah, it's very unique.
Yeah, it's very unique.
It's funny, too, because a lot of times when you're playing a dobro like this way, upright like a regular guitar player plays, the pan is shooting out at the audience, so you never hear how great the instruments sound. When you play this way, it's like right in your face. In fact, when I do live shows, I just take my vocal mic and cock it down onto the guitar and just play like that.
Yeah, he's got it flat on his lap right now for this type of playing.
Yeah.
All right, so that was like the medium tempo one. You want to do?
Yeah, I'll do a fast one.
You want to do a faster one?
You might know Sean Rolfe and the Seventh Day Buskers.
Absolutely.
Back about 15 years. I lose track of time sometimes. But anyway, I played with them for about 5 years. And, you know, even though they were doing like American folk music and bluegrass, part of Sean's concept was to play like bluegrass a little bit like it was punk, like jacked up and fast and stuff. And none of my songs were really fast enough to my original tunes. So I wrote one that's at least moderately medium tempo to get a song that we played with the band. So this one's called The Buskers Bounce.
All right.
That's the Buskers Bounce, friends.
Hooray for the Buskers Bounce! Wow. I love it. I love it. I love it. I am thrilled that you're here at Thunderbird Analog Recording Studio. I know that you appreciate that this is a house of music here.
God. Looking around here, there's so much history and stuff to look at. amazing. You turn it into a museum.
Well,
with all the records
it
and
is a
posters
museum,
and-
but a lot
oh,
of the
wow.
stuff works.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's amazing. Tom was just demonstrating the jukebox and
Yeah.
the combination of mechanics and electronics from that era still working together. It's
And you
amazing.
can smell the grease.
Yeah.
But I wanted to thank you for donating 2 of your speakers to the studio publicly. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
He put an ad in what, Facebook or something,
It was,
and said
I guess it was, I put it in Craigslist. What they were like is old Voice of the Theater cabinets, but without the horn on them. So they were only like 2.5 feet tall.
Uh-huh.
And I had purchased them from a sound man back around the 1980s named Sandy Blythe that worked for some sound company. And I was still into playing rock and roll bass, and I said, I'm going to play bass guitar for these and like mess some people up. And they wound up going into storage at my mom's house, and they sat there for almost 40 years. And so
well, they sound fantastic.
good. I'm really glad
They
went
bring
to the
that
right
bottom
party.
end to that Studio
Yeah.
B, and it just is killer.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you're able to use them because you wonder about stuff like that. It's just like it
Yeah.
goes to somebody and it winds up being stored, thrown away.
Well, and
or
this is
detached.
You
cut in-
hadn't even been to the studio before this podcast, so it was.
But I knew that Tom is like a collector and fixer of these kinds of things,
Yes.
So it went totally to the right place.
Yeah, he wouldn't have picked him up if he didn't want to use him.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think we should talk a little bit about a recording that I heard that you did called E minor 6.
Okay.
And this was recorded in the late 90s? Is that
Probably
correct?
1998 or 99. It was recorded at a home studio, 8-track half-inch, that was operated by Cliff Morris, who passed away just a couple of years ago. And he had, a studio in his home. When you record, you want to feel really comfortable with the people that are there in the studio with you. It's just like so important to me. And he was my guy. And he had good microphones. He had 8, half-inch format. So I did quite a bit of recording. In fact, when I took those tapes to someplace else to have them mixed, the guy, Dan De La Isla, that had done it, said, wow, these were recorded really well. So, they can hear stuff that I can't hear. I don't understand some of the finesse. Anyway, he had done a really good job, and I recorded that song. George Slepik was the drummer, young, antsy, ready to dig in hard, He had that kind of young energy. I probably had it bump, chicka, chicka, boom, chicka, boom, bump, chicka, like a surf beat. Boom, boom. And he says, no, you got to play it up-tempo swing. I can't even sing it that fast.
Yeah.
And he double-timed the drum part and played it like jazz, like a guy. And that kind of, pushed the song over to a new level. And horn arranging is something I've always been really inspired by and liking to do and developing that craft. I took arranging lessons from a fellow that taught at Berklee College of Music in Boston, and he quit his position at Berklee and came out to San Diego. And I think when the knowledge Hal Crook is coming to San Diego, all the people in the jazz community were going, ooh. And so Mark Lessman said, if you want to take arrangement, you need to study with this guy. So I did, and that man taught me more in about a few months than I'd learned. And I've had some really, really good teachers too, but his way of presenting information, making it as simple and understandable, and you got to know your scales, you got to know all of that stuff, but he made it easy and desirable and worth. It wasn't like a monkey on my back to learn that. It was like fun and just getting all the horns right. So that's kind of some of the background behind that song.
So did you arrange that whole song?
I wrote everything of it.
It is
every part of it.
Amazing.
There's no jamming in that
the
song.
The mix is, sometimes this guitar is only on the right, sometimes it's only on the left, and the drums are like all to one side pretty much, and then certain things come in, and the way that the horns kind of are simmering underneath, and then they kind of bubble up into this soulful thing, and then and the tempo is to tear ass, and the whole thing is just like, whoa. I love the mixing, so I know you arranged it, and I don't know if you had anything to do with the mixing. Did you collaborate with it, or did you just say, here?
If I remember correctly, those 8-track tapes were taken to Dan De La Isla, and he transferred them to Pro Tools and mixed it.
Wow. Excellent.
I mean, I sat with him while he mixed it, and I would always say, do this or do that. And
yeah, that's what I meant.
But a lot of times the guy that is
directing.
in charge, a lot of times I don't know very much about mixing, and I would say, turn something up, and he would turn something else down. And then the thing that I wanted to hear louder was, not too loud. He did a great job.
Mixing. I think it's just such a genuinely thrilling process, and I have a hard time saying, okay, I'm done. All right, this is a track from your past. This is called E minor 6. Let's take a listen. right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Robin Henkel, and he has a different dobro style guitar. Is this an actual?
This is actually a dobro. This is, you can just, it's kind of hard to read the insignia, but it's D-O-B-R-O at the top. This guitar was sold to me by Jack Butler, who you may know.
I do know Jack Butler.
Back in the 70s. And he was just clearing out some of his stuff. And I've had it since then, and I honor the pack. If I ever sell it, he will be the first one that finds out about it. But more than likely, I will carry this guitar to my grave. Maybe he'll get it then, if he outlives me.
What's the name of the song you're going to play for us right now?
Well, actually, I'm going to do a song called Take Me for a Ride in Your Mustang, Rita. But I'll do a little demonstration of the guitar style of the Mississippi guitar players, if anybody is interested in that.
I've been dying to learn more about Mississippi guitar players.
Well, when I was a little kid, I already kind of mentioned this. Before I even knew there was such a thing as blues, I always liked. That's just bending the string to the side. Which back then they call it choking the string. forget what it is, like the blues. And the Mississippi blues distinguished, see, they call it country blues, Mississippi Delta blues. And when they say country blues, they don't really mean country as in like country western. It's more to distinguish that style of blues from the Chicago blues, which was coming out of a larger, heavier population density in Chicago. It was more electric guitars, drums, and more kind of amped up, and it was like has a really strong place in inspiring rock musicians. The Mississippi blues also did that, but it was more coming out of a very harsh environment of workers working in the fields, 100 degrees day after day under the sharecropping system, and a lot of workers tried to escape that and get up north as they could. But anyway, that music was more characterized by one person playing out in the country, such as Robert Johnson. One of my favorites is Mississippi Fred McDowell, who, I don't know when he passed away, but he probably lived up until the 70s, or maybe at that time he was kind of one of the last of the Mohicans of the old school Mississippi guitar players. From what I've heard, and I can easily believe it, he was an influence on the sound of Bonnie Raitt's blues guitar playing, or especially her slide playing. One of the songs he did was called Write Me a Few Lines. I'll do a kind of little piece of that. The Rolling Stones covered some of his songs also, so he may have been an influence on them somewhat also. When you get home, baby, I want you to sit down and write me a few of your lines. When you get home, baby, I want you to sit down and write me a few of your lines. Robert Johnson used to go listen to when he was a little kid, so I guess that puts it in probably in the late 20s, was Son House. And Son House, they weren't playing an electric guitar back then, so Son House had this very powerful right hand technique, which if you've listened to Robert Johnson or other blues guitar players, you can hear the Son House in his playing. And one of my favorites, Big Joe Williams, not to be confused with a great jazz singer named Joe Williams. This is Big Joe Williams. Now, Big Joe Williams was big. And the video that survives, I've seen, he's got his bow tie is unclipped and it's hanging down. And from what I heard from Thomas Mann, the keyboard player, he's really kind of an expert on the old blues guitar players, that people made fun of him because of his guitar, because when you see pictures of it, looks like it's got duct tape and pickups and wires hanging off of it. It's kind of butt ugly, really. And he had taken a rack of 3 tuners and put it across the top of the guitar, the top of the headstock. So he strung 3 of his strings double. So he had a 9-string guitar, kind of like the same principle as a 12-string, but he only did it to 3 strings. So he had 3 strings double and 3 strings regular. And Mama don't allow me to boogie woogie all night long. Mama don't allow me to boogie woogie all night long. You might be a minor boy. Ooh, someone to treat you wrong. Charles Daddy, see you got something's been worrying me. My mama don't allow me to boogie woogie all night long. You might be a minor boy. Ooh, some woman will treat you wrong. So after playing many of those songs for 20 or more years, the different grooves, they kind of weave in and out of each other, and a different thing. I was working on something and this came out. It seemed like people were kind of digging on that. I always liked that groove, so I have a friend, former girlfriend, and she drove a 66 Mustang for about 27 years. She was the post lady in Ocean Beach for many years, for about 30 years. And so it was a 6-cylinder, dark blue Mustang 66 sedan. And we used to go for rides in it. It's just a lot of fun to cruise in a vintage car, But when you have a 50-year-old car as a daily driver, fan belt here, head gasket there, you got to keep chunking money into it. So this song is called Take Me for a Ride in Your Mustang, Rita. And her favorite lyric in the song is, when it gets warmed up, it's almost smooth. My favorite lyric is that, remember the Auto Trader? When the Auto Trader was printed on paper and you could hold it in your hands and read it? There was like a 5 or 6 point bullet to give you, if you didn't know very much about mechanics, you could select and make choices about a used vehicle. And the first one, it's kind of silly, but it's very real too. It's the 20-foot rule, which simply is, what's it look like when you size it up from 20 feet? And the kind of underlying cynicism there is you step a few feet closer, and that's when you notice the rust and the bald tire and all the stuff like that. So of course, any song that mentions Mustang is going to be thought, it's like there's a connection to Mustang Sally. And I mean, that was a great rhythm, and because that song had such killer rhythm and it was a great song, that it's amongst musicians, it's probably one of the most overplayed songs. So professional musicians that play in bars, that play blues, sometimes love playing it, and other times will cop attitude and have a chip on your shoulders, I'm not playing that.
I work at a place in Traverse City, Michigan that has a no Mustang Sally rule for the bar. In order to work there, you have to agree that you're not going to do that song.
That's funny.
I know. Well, but people do love it. I mean, they ask for it all the time.
Yeah. I remember one time I was playing at a backyard party that was all musicians. It was a jam session. And we were playing under a shade tarp, like an easy up, and taped to the inside of the thing where the people outside couldn't see it, but the band could see it, said no Mustang Sally. So anyway, this is Take Me for a Ride in Your Mustang, Rita. And I'll dedicate it to Mustang Sally. Take me for a drive in your Mustang, Rita. Take me for a drive so I can get satisfied chillin' with my favorite little villain. Take me for a drive in your punky blue jet. Take me for a drive Mustang, Rita. We can watch lights flicker as we ride along right. Bump and glide down El Cajon Boulevard, Bobita. Slide me down the alleyway in the sweetness of this night. It's 65 with inline 6, always grumbling, to-be fixed wire hanging from behind the dash, always begging for more cash. You wonder if it's going to start, but this machine is a breed apart. When it gets warmed up, it's almost smooth, passes the 20-foot rule. Take me for a drive in your Mustang, Rita. Take me for a ride in your funky sled. Cruising with my girl is where I really like being, so I can say I've lived before I'm dead. Washington, Pacific Highway, Rosecrans. Hey, let's go eat at Roberto's across from Lay Girls. Back on Highway 8 and south on 805. Skyline and Imperial. And with the boogie in my woogie, the boo-boo in my Lulu, we're gonna glide as we stride on the ride that's true. Not cruising for no bruising, we just like to keep on moving down the road, the freeway, and the avenue. Take me for a drive in your Mustang, Rita. Take me for a ride so I can get satisfied chillin' with my favorite little villain. Take me for a drive in your punky blue jet.
Iconic. I love it.
Thank you, Laura Jane.
I hope your old girlfriend loved it too.
Oh, she does. She still does.
All right.
Yeah, she's my buddy now.
Yeah, I'm ready for Thomas
from
to write a
girlfriend to buddy.
song about me. You can write about my big Chrysler van. It has many doors that open. It's handy. So I have to ask you a couple of logistical questions because obviously those of you out there in podcast land that haven't seen the live magical performance of Robin Henkel, how do they get to your schedule?
Well, my schedule is posted on my website, which is, are you ready for this?
I'm ready for this, bud.
RobinHenkel.com.
That's RobinHenkel.com.
And I think if you Google it and go Robin Henkel Blues, even if you misspell it, it'll find it. Because Google's great with that stuff, you know.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, yeah, my schedule is always posted under gigs when you get to my website.
Okay. And then also, do they find your music on your website and they can purchase it there as well? Or
I think so.
Do you sell things at your shows?
My newest I sell it at shows. You keep hearing his fellow people in the music industry say CDs are dead, but I think the only people that keep CDs alive is that people that perform live shows, people will always come up and buy them and want a souvenir, even though they go, well, I'll figure out somewhere to play this later. But I think on my website there's probably a link, but they can go to CD Baby or Apple iTunes, and I think if you find Robin Henkel, I've never done it, but I think if you look for Robin Henkel for sale, you'll find iTunes, and you'll find maybe more albums than that one. But the latest one is the one I gave you. It's called Slippery Like a Watermelon Seed.
That one won a San Diego Music Award. Best Blues of 2017. Well, I have really enjoyed our stay here.
Laura,
I got to ask you,
you've all made me so welcome and warm, so thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
I'm honored.
Well, we're honored that you are honored. And we should honor this with a simple goodbye ditty.
I'll do something right now.
All right. I like it. Well, that wraps up our two-part series with Robin Henkel. Robin, I can hardly wait to come see you live again. Thank you for being an important part of the San Diego blues community. musical community. I hope all of your dreams of fusion come true and that you continue to be the master of all that you wish to bring into fruition. Thank you for collaborating with so many great musicians, and I hope to collaborate with you someday myself.
Well, we will sometime.
I think that would be a joy.
All right.
Robin Henkel. Check it out at robinhenkel.com. Once again, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Laura.